Direct drive wheelbases are now a commonplace option for racing game enthusiasts, but there's nothing common about the Cammus C5. It's a direct drive with a unique design, combining the wheel, button plate and motor in a single slimline package. In addition, this keeps the production cost down, and that's reflected in the sticker price, making it a very attractive offering. Price-wise, very similar to the entry-level Logitech G923. In today's video, I'm going to run you through all the features in detail, then onto the track for testing and evaluation. I also have this wheelbase paired with the Cammus CP5 pedals. The pedals are optional. You can pick up the wheelbase by itself or bundled with the pedals, so you have two options. Now the main emphasis is the wheelbase, but I will include my impressions on the CP5 pedals in the review too. Remarkably, the thickness is under 7 cm or around 8 cm if you include the protruding wheel plate dials. Even side by side versus this average add-on wheel plus its quick release, the Cammus C5 is quite a bit thinner in comparison. And this is how it sizes up next to the Logitech G923. One similarity they share is both have a 27 cm diameter wheel rim. Housed within this compact profile, weighing just 3.3 kilograms, is a motor rated at 5 Newton meters of constant torque and a peak torque rating estimated to be up to 7 Newton meters, making the Cammus C5 more powerful than expected. We'll talk about that more in detail later in the video. Materially, the housing is aluminium, the front face featuring a carbon fibre plate, where we can see 20 push buttons, 3 dials, a 3-digit display and a rev light gauge. You may have missed them, but we do get a pair of small but functional paddle shifters. A quick run through the I/O. Here we find the power button, a reset button, and of course the power socket. That's fed by this 140 watt power supply. The USB socket is for the data cable that runs to your PC, and to the left of that is for an external cooling fan. We'll take a look at that in a moment. Finally, at the bottom of this socket cluster are two USB Type-C sockets, one for the pedals and the other one is either for a Cammus shifter or handbrake. In the parts list, this is called the T-bracket, and it's a vital component for attaching the C5 to the table clamp. It's worth knowing the T-bracket is included with the C5 wheelbase, but the table clamp is not, so you will need to buy the table clamp as an extra accessory, and certainly without the table clamp you'll have a difficult time mounting the C5. The table clamp is made from steel and comes with a useful built-in angle adjustment. You set the hole alignment to the desired angle, then lock it in with a couple of screws. The fan I mentioned earlier, well here it is. It's a blower style fan that sucks air through the top and then that's blown out the side towards the back of the wheelbase motor. The rear of the wheelbase is vented and the application of the fan circulates cool air to help dissipate heat buildup. The fan speed does adjust according to the temperature of the motor and becomes louder after a few minutes of use, but is inaudible against the backdrop of my speakers while in game. This is how the T-bracket interfaces with the table clamp. If you unscrew the clamps, there's another way to use this piece for hard mounting the wheelbase, as I did for most of my testing. The result is a very solid installation. Even with heavy force that manages to rock the sim rig, there's no noticeable flex coming from the wheel itself. The CP5 pedals are a simple 2-pedal design, constructed from steel. They're inexpensive, costing just $50 when bought along with the wheelbase. So certainly worth considering if you don't have another set of pedals you can use. These will get you up and running. Both pedals use torsion springs for the resistance. Magnetic sensors pick up the pedal input. If I remove one of the pedals, you can see how this works. This magnet rotates with the pedal. When the pedal is fixed to the heel plate, the magnet sits within the controller box where the Hall sensor is housed. For grip, there are rubber feet underneath, though they might struggle to provide enough friction to keep the pedals from moving around, so you may have to work something out to keep them in one place. I was able to easily attach the CP5 pedals to my Wheel Stand Pro, and that solved the problem. Like any device of this type, you'll need to install some specific software to run the hardware. In the Cammus software, you'll set the wheel angle, power output, and a few other common driver-side wheelbase adjustments. There's not much to show here, everything is easy to navigate and uncomplicated. I do want to draw your attention to one setting though, as this may trip you up. If you intend to play Forza Horizon 5, the Cammus C5 does support this game without having to resort to setting up Forza EMU wheel, which is a bit of a hassle if you're forced to use that workaround with your wheelbase. Some brands of wheelbases do need to use that, and it is a bit of a pain to use. In the Cammus software, there's a simple checkbox to activate the compatibility. It does work and I have tested it. But don't forget to deactivate it once you've finished running the game. You simply go back into the settings and uncheck the box. Otherwise it can affect other racing games, causing some strange force feedback behaviour or having no force feedback at all. So just remember that tip. If you like my content, consider becoming a member to help support the channel. Click on the join button to find out more. Coming up, you'll see me sample several popular racing games as we run through the remainder of the review. So the first thing to touch upon is game compatibility, and the good news is all of the games I tested recognised the wheel and ran as expected. I encountered no issues getting the wheel set up. Though one thing worth mentioning, in Assetto Corsa and Assetto Corsa Competizione, dial down the road surface effects to 0. That's an effect enhancement designed to raise the sensation on lower torque wheelbases. Direct drive wheelbases don't necessarily need to use that effect. You can, but it's not essential. But the main reason you need to turn it off in these two games with the C5 is otherwise the wheelbase produces a very odd and distracting hum. You can hear it and feel it resonate through the wheel. It's not very pleasant. Interestingly, when I tested and reviewed the Cammus 15Nm wheelbase quite a while back now, it had the same anomaly. So turn down that in-game setting and it will be absolutely fine. The power of the Cammus C5 is surprisingly robust, officially rated at 5 Nm of constant torque and a peak torque that's unofficially estimated to be up to 7 Nm. Some hardware brands quote their motor output using constant torque and others will use the peak torque rating, and it's worth knowing that does make a meaningful difference. Constant torque is the power output the motor is able to sustain constantly, and peak torque is the measure of the motor's maximum torque it can output for a short period of time. All direct drive wheelbases will technically have both a constant and peak torque rating, and as I said, the manufacturer will normally just list one or the other, but usually they will mention if it's a peak or a constant torque rating, so that's something to look out for. For example, Fanatec and Moser state the peak torque rating for their wheelbases. I've reviewed both the Moser R5 and the Fanatec CSL-DD, the 8 Nm version, and I can tell you the Cammus C5 is most definitely more powerful than the Moser R5, and the Cammus feels pretty close to the 8 Nm CSL-DD. And that's really impressive when you factor in the considerable price difference between the Cammus C5 and the Fanatec CSL-DD. Now of course there are other factors to consider when picking your wheelbase. Torque output is just one of them. And one of those other factors is the force feedback quality produced by the wheelbase, and the Cammus C5 does do well, but it is fair to say that the CSL-DD force feedback does outperform the C5. Obviously the Fanatec wheelbase is a little bit more powerful, but also delivers more detail, and one should expect that. The CSL-DD is a much more expensive wheelbase. But the Cammus does not disappoint. This is a direct drive wheelbase and shares the same advantages you get from all direct drive wheelbases. There are no gears or belts between the motor and the steering wheel, and what we have is a one-to-one connection between the motor and wheel. And fewer moving parts means increased durability and no impedance between the wheel and the motor that would otherwise add friction and absorb fine force feedback detail. The sensations coming from the C5 are firstly robust, and secondly it's transmitting the game effects with good detail, right down to track surface texture and small bumps, and if the fine details come through cleanly, then you know there will be no problem tackling those stronger effects either. The wheelbase packs a decent punch, so hold on tight if you clip a curb. I'm more than satisfied here. The force feedback is engaging and informative. The C5 is giving me an enjoyable driving experience. Whether it's casual racing games or sim racing games, it's easily up to the task. A particular feature I'm looking for from a wheelbase is when I'm turning into corners, I want a clear and progressive build-up of counterforce weight so I can feel the limit of grip. Now when I'm using low torque wheelbases in say the 2 to 4 Newton meter range, this can be vague when the wheel motor output peaks as soon as you turn in, and then you're left with having to make a guess if you've hit the limit of grip or not. And that lack of raw power from the wheelbase sometimes results in an understeer or oversteer situation. That's not the case here. Using the C5, there's plenty of progressive sensation and weight. I'm always confident leaning on the wheel and trusting the force feedback to react and returning the information I need. And if I push things too far and the back end steps out, I can feel that immediately and counter correct. The force feedback is communicating all the right cues. I can test the limits of the car, try different approaches into corners, and the feedback is sensitive enough to the point I'm driving the car through that feel and using the response from the force feedback to understand the car and the track. The C5 is essentially priced as entry-level hardware, but easily outperforms any other wheelbase in this price range I've ever used. Also impressive is the build quality. There's no flex, it's super sturdy, solid materials used throughout. Except for one element, and that's the paddle shifters. They're plastic. Considering everything else is metal and carbon fibre, I would have expected to get metal paddle shifters too. I can't say I had any problems with them, and neither is the unusual small size. They are right at my fingertips in easy reach, and they don't feel flimsy. Functionally they're fine, but being that they are used constantly, I would have preferred metal rather than plastic. Now let's take a quick look at those CP5 pedals. They are basic, just 2 pedals and magnetic analog sensors for the inputs. The size is fine, they feel comfortable and solid under my feet, and the spring tension is quite firm. They have a decent amount of pedal throw too, which is good for modulating accurate pedal input. These are certainly better made than many other basic pedal sets I've used. For casual racing games, these are good enough. For sim racing games that require more precise finesse for consistent braking to get the best out of the car, that's where all basic pedal sets, including these CP5 pedals, will struggle. They're not perfect for that sort of application. For sim racing games, you really need a load cell brake. But to get you started though, these pedals are actually okay, they're reasonable. And considering the price, I have no complaints, it's fair. They certainly feel quite sturdy and well made. So yeah, I think you're getting value for money on that basis. But yeah, if you're in it for the long term, guys, if you're looking for sim racing pedals, yeah, you're going to want to get these maybe just to get up and running, but later look at investing in a better pedal set. If your budget only stretches as far as an entry-level wheel setup, or for that matter, any belt-driven wheelbase from the Thrustmaster lineup you may be eyeing up right now, unless console compatibility is a necessity, I would seriously suggest you consider the Cammus C5 instead. I've had a great time with my Cammus C5, it's a really nice bit of kit, especially when it's this cheap. It's absolutely outstanding value for money. This wheelbase has really raised the bar for price to performance at this price point. This is a direct drive wheelbase, about the same sort of price as a G923 or T300. The C5 is superior in both build quality and force feedback to either of those. It's not even close. Some people might be put off by the wheel diameter of just 270mm wide, or the fact the wheel rim can't be changed out. Well, there are other wheelbases out there if you want that, if you have a bigger budget to dip into. The Cammus C5 is a budget product, so missing the bells and whistles of other wheelbases is acceptable. And credit to Cammus on its unique design. There's nothing out there like this, and they pulled it off. It works really well. I like it a lot. I think it's actually pretty nice. The perfect compact size for a desk or wheel stand. For the right gamer, the Cammus C5 is a great option. For what it offers at this price, it's a firm recommendation as far as I'm concerned. I do very much like the Cammus C5, so well done Cammus, good job on that one, and I think that covers it today for my Cammus C5 review. One final thing that's worth mentioning, Cammus do ship from regional warehouses, so there are no hidden extra import duties to pay. Also, use my coupon code for a 5% discount if you do make a purchase. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, happy simming and bye bye for now.